Far-right protesters clashed with the UK police at several locations after the spread of misinformation about the stabbing of 3 young girls in Southport. Riots involving hundreds of far-right anti-immigration protesters have erupted in several towns and cities in recent days after false information spread rapidly on social media that the suspect in Monday's knife attack at a dance class for children in Southport was an illegal immigrant. Well, the police have also confirmed that the suspect, who's 17 years of age, was born in Cardiff, Wales. But the protests by anti-immigration demonstrators still continue. Now, several people have been arrested in connection with the riots. Far-right activists have been accused of using social media platforms to spread misinformation and falsely claiming that the Southport attacker was an immigrant who had arrived in the UK illegally. Now, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has pledged to give police forces the government's full support to take action against who he calls as extremists who are attempting to sow hate in the country. Well, that is the latest coming in at this point in time. We also have Fraser Maud, Sky News reporter, getting us this ground report from Liverpool. Take a look.
Well, it feels like a reasonably regular Sunday morning here in Walton. The disturbances that we saw in the centre of Liverpool petered out later in the evening yesterday, and then the trouble moved here, up to 300 people in effectively running battles with the police, many of them young people, many of them children, in fact, combating police. There were bins set on fire. The local library hub was set on fire as well. There's damage to the ground floor there. That library hub introduced here in Walton to try and provide support in one of the most economically deprived areas of the country. This morning the street sweepers have been out clearing up debris. There's evidence of industrial bins which have been set on fire. When fire crews came here last night, they were attacked by the mob, a window broken on a fire engine, unable to attend to put out some of the fires that have been started. Police were attacked with fireworks. There were running battles here for quite some time, and then in the early hours of this morning, police introduced a Section 60 notice across the whole of the Merseyside Force area to give them extra powers of stop and search and to be able to disperse groups that they think may well be planning to take part in any antisocial behaviour. The situation started in Liverpool with an anti-fascist march meeting up with anti-immigrant protesters down at the waterfront. That was difficult for police to keep those groups apart, and then it was later on in the evening that the trouble spread here. Talking to one person who came up to us this morning, he didn't want to appear on camera. He didn't admit to taking part in the disturbances last night, but he said he had sympathy with those who were protesting. He said that people tried to protest during COVID. They were locked down. They were prevented from doing that. They wanted to peacefully protest then. And he said it's all built up to this. He said that people have simply had enough and cited a number of reasons, including immigration, although he said that this isn't a racist city. We're not racist, but we've just simply had enough. Another man summed it up just by saying this is an embarrassment for Liverpool. There were 23 arrests made in Liverpool yesterday, 9 of them here in Walton, and police say that many more arrests, this is the same for forces across the country, many more arrests are likely to come as they scour body-worn cameras worn by the police, CCTV footage, social media footage to identify the people who've been taking part in these disturbances right across the country.
Well, that was one ground report from Liverpool. We're learning now protests have spread to other parts of the country also, with the violence and riots that have been reported from several locations. We also have former BBC editor in London, Nicholas Nugent, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, Nicholas, for speaking to NDTV. What can you tell us? What is the situation at the moment? We've been learning of reports coming in from different locations in UK that violence and riots are being witnessed in several parts of the country, where all have these protests spread, and what is the police really doing to contain the situation there?
Well, I think you heard most of it in that report you just had from the Walton area of Liverpool. I've been scanning the media this morning, and I see at least 12 cities have been mentioned where some sort of activity has been going on the streets, and the police have been out in force to resist it. And they overall, they talk about 90 arrests. I think, I mean, the only thing I can clearly identify is that there are these cities are mainly in the north of England, plus one in Northern Ireland. That gives you some clue. And we, as your reporter has said, it seems clear that this is a reaction to the murder of 3 young children last Monday. Seems to have triggered this, compounded by social media misidentifying the person. It's hard from my perspective to say this is an anti-immigration or a racist demonstration, but it looks like that, I have to say, because the targets have tended to be mosques, corner shops owned by people of non-British origin, if I can put it like that. And it seems the sort of racist element in our community has come out. Your reporter said Liverpool's not a racist city, it's good multicultural relations. So that's the surprise, that cities which are normally at peace, despite having perhaps a significant proportion of people of minority ethnic communities, that seems to have broken down.
Right.
And the other factor to mention is that a lot of the demonstrations are aimed at the police themselves. That's harder to explain, perhaps because the police are protecting mosques, are protecting corner shops, protecting vulnerable buildings. Thus, the mob, and I'm only going to call them the mob because it's hard to know what identity to give them otherwise, they have turned on the police. And the police, as far as we can tell, have been doing a very good job in keeping law and order, keeping things under control, and indeed protecting those vulnerable buildings.
All right. And looking at the situation at the moment here, what do these protests really signal for the newly sworn in Prime Minister, Keir Starmer? It's been a month or so that he was sworn in. What's he doing to quell these protests? Well,
he appears to be coordinating a lot of meetings. They were meeting the last 2 or 3 days. There have been more or less continuous governmental meetings. And the one firm action we understand has been taken, apart from the action of cancelling police leave in local areas, but the firm action taken centrally is to arrange for the courts to sit out of hours and indeed at the weekends, so that those arrested can be processed rather swiftly. But you may recall that one of the challenges the new government took on was the shortage of places in prison, which they blame on the previous government. Very, very short of places on prison. Plus, the previous government presided over the closing of a lot of courts. So even our law and order situation and our judiciary seems to have been challenged by this. So yes, you could call this the first big challenge for the new government of Keir Starmer. And as it is, by chance, he used to be the director of public prosecutions. So he used to be the one responsible for prosecutions of the sort that are carrying on. So he knows both the police and the justice system intimately, and we have great expectations that he will solve the problem. But it is a big challenge, and he wasn't expecting this. That's clear.
Absolutely, it's a daunting challenge, of course, and a situation that really needs to be handled at the moment. Well, it's been days now that the protests continue, and today also we had these pictures and visuals now coming in from different locations in UK where these protests are taking place. Well, shops have been vandalized, property has been damaged, and of course we do understand the government is doing as much as it can to contain the situation at the moment. Thank you so much, meanwhile, Nicholas, for speaking to us and sharing all that information with our viewers there. Well, we also have a report from Sky News reporter Rob Powell on the UK protest. He's getting us this report from Downing Street, London.
Downing Street is lit up again tonight as a mark of respect for the 3 little girls that lost their lives earlier this week. The government now finds itself dealing with a whole new set of events. I think the government response has been to try and be as visible as possible, to sort of put out a message that they're alive to the risks and the seriousness of the situation, but I think it's also been quite carefully calibrated. They are very aware in government that information and misinformation can spread rapidly, so sound bites interventions need to be quite tightly buttoned down. They're talking a lot about violence and law breaking rather than some of the political arguments that people say lie behind some of the unrest that we've seen. The difficulty for the government is that in circumstances like this, people ask what ministers are doing to stop the violence, and yet the practical levers that they can actually pull here in Westminster are limited because it's mainly for the police to respond, and ministers are often reticent to try and interfere or pressurise the police in their response. So I think we get language more than anything. We get setting the tone, talking about people paying the price if they are found to be committing violence, and also Yvette Cooper today talking about the full force of the law coming down on people. I think there are more practical things the government can do with that. They've talked about court space being freed up, prison space being freed up, prosecutors being brought in so quick charging decisions can be made, all quite reminiscent of 2011, the London riots, when we saw courts sitting through the night. Now, the chief prosecutor of the country at the time, one Sir Keir Starmer, at the time said that he believed that was a deterrent. The speedy charging and conviction of people was a deterrent to stop people going out and committing more violence.